Hey guys, it's Pastor Sam, and today we are outside once again because we're doing an experiment that might get a little bit messy. Today we are learning about the difference between regular ice and dry ice. Let's talk about regular ice first. Now you probably know that regular ice is made from water, also known as H2O. We've talked a lot about how everything in the world is made out of molecules, which are so small you need special instruments to see them. Water is called H2O because it is made out of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. Frozen ice is about 30 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty cold. But dry ice is very different. It looks really similar to regular ice, but it's not made from H2O or water. It's actually made from frozen carbon dioxide. All together, let's take a deep breath in and take a deep breath out. What came out when you breathed out was carbon dioxide. And when that stuff is all frozen, it makes dry ice. Now, dry ice is different from frozen H2O because it is a lot colder. It is actually closer to negative 130 degrees. That is really cold. And unlike regular ice, which if you can see is already starting to melt, regular ice, when it's frozen, melts into water, which later can evaporate into a gas, like we've talked about in other experiments. But dry ice, when it starts to melt, it goes straight from solid into gas. That's why you can see all of this cloudy stuff coming off the dry ice. When we put regular ice into water, not much happens. It makes the water a little bit cooler and the ice starts to melt. But when we put dry ice into water, something completely different happens. I'm wearing gloves because we can't touch dry ice. It's way too cold. Let's see what happens when we put some dry ice into water. Wow! So as you can see, that sublimation process is happening really fast right before our eyes. Instead of the dry ice turning into a liquid, it's going straight from a solid into a gas, and if you put your face close to it, but not right over it because it's really cold, you can feel that cool air coming off that dry ice, and it makes a fun sound too. So now that we know the difference between regular ice and dry ice, let's try a few experiments and have some fun with the dry ice. First of all, here's a question. If we put dry ice into colored water, what color will the fog be? Do you think that it will be yellow like this water, or do you think it will be white like the other fog? Let's try it out. Well, while it looks like some yellow water is coming off the sides as the dry ice sublimates, it looks like the water is yellow, but the fog is white. That's a great fun experiment. You can try it with other colors, and you can see and watch all of that fog coming out and hear the dry ice bubbling inside. While that bubbles for a little bit, let's see what happens if we put some dry ice into this beaker that's filled not just with water, but also with soap. What do you think will happen? Let's try it out. Whoa! It looks like we have a soapy volcano happening. And unlike the fog, which stayed white, some of this foam that's coming out is actually green. Good thing we're outside, or else this would be a pretty big mess inside. It's also important that if you do get some dry ice and try some experiments, you always use it outside, because this vapor that's coming off the dry ice isn't great for us to breathe inside, and it's also not safe to keep inside our refrigerator or freezer because it can cause them to explode. Crazy! Let's try a few more experiments with our dry ice. All right, it looks like the bigger container we use and the bigger piece of dry ice, the bigger the reaction. How cool to watch sublimation happening right before our eyes. A solid turning into a gas without even turning into a liquid right here. Remember not to breathe in this fog and always to do this experiment outside if you try it, and it is really a fun one. As our solutions continue to bubble and fizz, let's talk about why we're doing an experiment about dry ice. You know what I find interesting about dry ice and regular ice is that they look very, very similar from the outside. But the dry ice has so much more power. It's very similar to how Jesus was when he was here on this earth. He looked like and he was human, but he also had the power of God. And when he came into contact with people, just like this dry ice is coming into contact with these solutions, big things happened. There are so many stories about all the lives that Jesus changed when he came into contact with them. And you know what's amazing? In the book of Ephesians, chapter 1, God tells us that the same power that lived in Jesus and rose Jesus from the dead lives in us. All we need to do is ask Jesus to come into our hearts, and we can experience Jesus changing our lives and everything around us, just like this dry ice is impacting all of these solutions. So let's not settle for being just regular people. By Jesus' power, we can have hope and do hard things and be forever changed if we'll just ask Jesus to come into our lives today.